Hi class, this is Professor Barry Brennan. I'm here today to talk to my interpersonal communication class about communication and the shaping of our identities. What does that mean, right? Communication. So if communication is the driver of all relationship, it absolutely shapes our identity. And so we're going to it's an overview. I mean, we could actually spend probably a very long time. Those of you taking psychology classes know what I'm talking about. A long time looking at the roots of all of it. But we're going to kind of look at how communication has shaped us and where it is. How do we use that now? How do we manage our identities? How does it shape our identities now? What do we do? What's our public self? What's our private self? Those are all the kinds of things that we're going to talk about, as well as to go into some theories that relate to how we disclose ourselves, how we disclose ourselves in relationships. And that'll be, we looking at impression management theory, and then we'll be looking at social penetration theory and communication privacy management theory. 3 theories. It's a lot of theories, but I actually think it's going to be really interesting for you. And I'm excited actually to share it with you. So let's get straight to the PowerPoint. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go for it. And I'm going to get up. I'm going to be over in the little corner in a minute. I'm going to pause it right now so I can figure out what's going on. Okay, I'm back now. So here I am, and let's start that slideshow from the current slide. This is me up here in the corner. Communication and the shaping of our identities. So the self is you, right? It's not me, it's you. We're talking about yourself. And I want you to think about, as I'm going through this lecture, which is going to take probably 3 or 4 videos of this, I want you to think about who you are. How do you define yourself? If someone were to ask you, who are you? Which always seems like a really deep question, right? Who are you? Think about, these are just some of the questions you might ask yourself. You might ask yourself, what is your mood generally? What kind of person are you? Are you the person that's the glass is half full or the glass is half empty? Do you say, I'm not a pessimist, I'm a realist? Are you usually in a good mood? Do you feel good about life? Or are you more on the depressive side? And none of them is like good or bad. There's no value attached to this. It's just kind of like, who are you? How do you move for the world? What do you look like? How would you describe yourself, right? How would you describe your appearance? Like, what are you wearing right now? How do you relate to people socially? How do you relate? Are you the one that waits for someone to come to you, or will you go straight up to person and introduce yourself? Who are you in that way? What kind of talents do you have? Are you good at singing? Are you a really good writer? Do you play basketball? Can you like shoot hoops like nobody's business? What are your strong beliefs and what kind of values are important to you? What do you hold true to your heart? What would you die for? What would you fight for? That's what I mean by values. How would you describe yourself intellectually? Would you say you're a smart person? Would you say you're average? Would you say that you're brilliant? Sometimes you're feeling brilliant. You're genius. You're not very smart. How would you describe yourself that way? Just these are the things that I want you to think about, and you can come back. The PowerPoint is on Canvas. You can come back and look at that and write about that. Give you something to like really consider. Okay, we're going to move on. So biological and social roots of the self. How we understand ourselves has both biological and social roots. The biological part is related to genetics, right? So our personality, believe it or not, our personality is not just socially constructed, which means socially shaped by a society or community or the family we live in. It is biological. there are certain things, and I want you to think about things like this. I always think this is so interesting, that we think we're so individualistic, right? We think we're unique and no one's like us. But have you ever seen like families where someone has a certain behavior that they do, or the way they smile, or just the way they walk is just like their parents? I mean, it's a weird thing, right? Now, are they doing that because they watch their parents do it, so that's how they learn to walk or learn how to have certain attitudes or laugh? Maybe. Or it could be genetic. Like for me, I sometimes have kind of a crooked smile. I got that from my father. I had braces one time, and my teeth are crooked because they went back to the way they used to be, and that's like from my father too. So poor dad, gonna blame everything. My dad was a good guy. So our personalities, there's a genetic basis for our personalities. It's not just social. Research says that almost half of the way we communicate and the way we respond to things is genetically driven. Isn't that interesting? So when you think you have so much control over, your responses, your reactions, right? For me, my dad had a lot of patience with people, but when it came to things, and because I'm a lot like my dad, so I'm going to use my dad as an example a lot. When it came to things, he was easily frustrated, meaning when he was trying to fix something or when he was trying to put something together or something. All I know is when I was a kid, our garage was below our living room in our house. You had to go up these steps into the house, and I would hear him in the garage, like cussing to like all get out. And he would be loud and he was mad. Now, he would never do that to me. He didn't do that to my mom. He didn't do that to any people that ever saw. He didn't get mad. He was pretty chill. And he had a lot of personality, but he didn't get he was pretty patient. When it came to things, man, forget it. He would have an immediate response. He would be like a hothead. I have that same personality. And he'd be a hothead and he'd get over it. He'd spurt, get mad, and then it'd be gone. He'd be done with it. And he wasn't one to hold grudges. And I am the same way. I don't really hold grudges. I don't forget, but I really don't. I don't hold grudges. My mom, I'm sure she took those grudges to her grave. So those are personality characteristics. You have them, something to think about. You, who are you? And what communication behavior do you have that's like your parents or your grandparents, right? Now let's just say, what if you were someone who was adopted? This is why actually Ancestry.com is so interesting, because we are wondering what is our roots and what that's about and where do we come from? Because it does. Now remember, it says almost half. So there's a whole bunch of the other half, more than half, isn't biologically related, but there is a portion that is. Okay, so keeping that all in weighted or in balance is what I want to say. Let's keep going. So socialization. Here's the other more than half of how we communicate. There is this idea of what we call reflected self-appraisal, and it's how we get. How do I want to say it? It's how we get, how we are responded to people growing up tells us how we should feel about ourselves. Okay, let me say that again. So people that are important in our lives, it's usually our primary caretakers. I'm talking about when we're in elementary school and younger. Our primary caretakers, which could be your mom, dad, grandparents, sister, brother, uncle, aunt, whoever your primary caretakers are. And then maybe it's your foster parents, okay? How they responded to us, their appraisal of us, what they said about us, reflects back to how we feel about ourselves. Okay, so if you were like, I grew up with a mom and dad and a grandmother. I'm an only child. And my grandmother, bless her heart now, she's gone. She's been gone for a while. My grandmother was highly critical. That's just the way she was made. But it really impacted me a lot. By second grade, I wasn't even talking in class anymore because I was so afraid to have the wrong answer. I was really uptight. And that criticism of that kind of her wanting me to be perfect affected how I felt about myself, affected my view of myself. That's what I mean by reflected appraisal. And it has to be significant others. It doesn't mean significant others in the way we say it, like your SO. We're talking about people that are significant in your life, your brothers and sisters, your siblings, your parents. Okay. We also learn about who we are by comparing ourselves to others. Social comparison, how we, not just how we look, but how are we doing? Does he play baseball better than me? Does she wear a dress better? Or does she have nicer shoes? Or does she run better than me? Or is she smarter than me? Or is he smarter than me? Right? We do that social comparison, right? To find out where we're at. Are we better or less than? It's normal. It's part of what people do. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it can motivate us, right? To be better or to grow. But it is something that we do as humans. We also have reference groups of which we pull that information from, right? For me, I was a Brownie and a Girl Scout. And then I got into clubs when I was in high school. Those became my reference groups that reflected back who I was. When I was in student council, I was a student leader. When I was in Girl Service Club, I was doing service work, right? That reflected like the kind of person that I was and the kind of person that I wanted to be. Those were my reference groups, how they treated me, how I was treated back. Okay, we're going to stop here and I'm going to go to the next. I'm going to stop here and make another video and we're going to start at characteristics of self-concept.